Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Mother's Day, I'm just going to say it, is a minefield for ministers. It is, because we've all had different experiences of it. And if you weren't here last week, you weren't aware, I'm doing a whole series this month on the paradox of being human and divine. And Mother's Day is perfect. Because our mothers are wonderful, and they're, like everyone else, created in the image and the likeness of the Most High, image bearers of God, and they are human. And the job of mothering is too big for anybody to do perfectly. Oh, I don't mean your mother. Of course, she did it perfectly, but no. None of our mothers have, and none of you mothers are doing it perfectly. And so we get to sit in this paradox of humanity and divinity. I'd like to start by reading a Mother's Day prayer. This is by Amy Young. Today, we acknowledge the wide continuum of mothering. To those who gave birth this year to their first child, we celebrate with you. To those who lost a child, we mourn with you. To those who are in the trenches with little ones every day and wear the badge of food stains, we appreciate you. To those who walk the hard path of infertility, fraught with pokes and prods, tears and disappointments, we walk with you. Forgive us when we say foolish things. We don't mean to make this harder than it is. To those who are foster moms, mentor moms, and spiritual moms, we need you. To those who have warm and close relationships with your children, we celebrate with you. And to those who have disappointment, heartache, and distance with your children, we sit with you. To those who lost their mothers this year, we grieve with you. To those who lived through driving tests, medical tests, and the overall testing of motherhood, we are better for having you in our midst. To those who are single and long to be married and mothering your own children, we stand with you in possibility. And to those who step-parent, we walk with you on these complex paths. To those who envision lavishing love on grandchildren, that dream is not yet to be or to be, we grieve with you. To those who will have emptier nests in the upcoming year, we grieve and rejoice with you. To those who place children up for adoption, we commend you for your selflessness and remember how you hold that child in your heart. And to those who are now pregnant with new life, both expected and surprising, we anticipate with you. This is Mother's Day. We walk with you. Mothering is not for the faint of heart, and we have real warriors in our midst. We remember you. Thank you, Amy Young, for that beautiful prayer. From Twitter. This is a mom tweeting. I said to my son, "Look at that kid over there. He's not misbehaving." My son paused and said, "Maybe he has good parents." I know. Wow. My daughter came in the room saying we need to talk, and then she proceeded to say, "I know you don't whoop us, but I think you need to start whooping my brother." A kid in my son's class came up to me and explained that she was sure that my son has two moms because he has the pretty mom and the other mom. Reader, both are me. My daughter just asked me where we keep our crowbar, and I think that is my cue to end the unsupervised play portion of our day. Oh, my goodness. So what I want to talk about today is, like I said, the paradox here. I've talked to several friends of mine this week who are mothers and talking about their experience, both who are grown and some whose mothers have passed and some who have kids that are still young. And one of my young mom friends, she was saying that recently divorced, and that's tough on the kids, and how hard she's working to make the home and the life for her son, to make him know that he feels loved and safe, and it's like he doesn't get that how hard she's working, and she gets that he's not supposed to know, but she's really working hard. And I said, yeah, it's like you're his atmosphere. He doesn't know that it's supposed to be any different. Yeah, food is supposed to be made, the clothes are supposed to be washed. That's just what mothers do. And so we take a moment just to recognize that that is not easy, and none of that happens automatically. It's hard work. And then there's the emotional care for those children, and that's a lot. And there comes a point in our own growth, in our own healing, hopefully, where we begin to see that our moms did the best they could do with what they had. I had a conversation with another mother. She's a mother herself now a grandmother, new grandmother, and she was talking about growing up with her mom, and it was a difficult relationship. And we were talking about it, and both she and her sister have kind of done a lot of work on that, and she was saying, but what I've realized is that my mom did a little bit better than her mom was able to do. And that felt like a really important thing to talk about today, too. That this job is too big to do perfectly, but perhaps every generation can just bring a little bit more wholeness, a little more healing than maybe what they received, and maybe pass on a fewer of those fun family traditions like addiction and all that kind of stuff. Really, you're not going to get it perfect, but every generation, if we can just do a little bit better than what was done before. And my friend had a lot of peace around that, knowing that let her off the hook. She didn't have to be perfect for her mom. And she was saying how grateful she is to see that her daughter raising her kids just a little bit more consciously than she was able to at that age. So I think that's one way that we can begin to hold this human part. I will say this, that they, the last time I talked about this particular part of motherhood was in 2020, so it was a presidential election year, and there was a lot of energy around that, and there was a quote from The Atlantic that said that there is not a single person that can ever possibly represent all the needs of 330 million people. So the job of President of the United States is too big to do well, really. And mom is even harder. It really is. There are too many needs. There are too many things required. So moms, I invite you to lower your shoulders. Let's all just say, moms, everybody, just say, I'm doing good enough. I don't believe you really have the enthusiasm. And I'm doing good enough. Just feel that. That's what I mean by honoring the human part, is that you don't have to be perfect. I told my mom, well, I will say this, I don't know if I've told my mom this, but if you're watching, hi, Mom. For years in my therapeutic growth and healing work, it was like I had a decade where all the problems were my dad's fault, and then the next day it was all my mom's fault. And finally, I realized I got to the point where it was like, oh, it's all me. It's on me now. So I love you, Mom, and I had to go through that work, It was just part of it. And I'm so grateful to still have my mom. And I'm really grateful. I'll be up there in a couple of weeks to spend some time with her. Robert Browning said this, mothers, all love and begins and ends there. So thank you, everyone who is holding that role of mothering. So that's acknowledging the human part of being a mom. Let's talk about the spiritual truth of this. And this is really not just, none of this is just for moms, but this is really what I want to be talking about all month long. That in our teaching of unity, non-duality, is that we are indeed made in the image and likeness of the Most High, and we are created in the same perfection and wholeness of creation itself. That we are whole, perfect, and complete at core. We actually don't teach original sin, we teach original blessing in unity. That who we really are is already whole. And the human part is that we were raised in human families where not everybody was aware of that. And so we have inherited some false beliefs and cultural misidentities and things like that. We've inherited a lot of stuff. So as Michael Beckwith says, that all of our work in spiritual growth is subtractive. We don't need to add anything to ourselves to be more one with God than we already are. But we do have some things in the way. And that's all in our own mind. Ernest Holmes says that the awareness of the presence of God is the greatest healing agency known to the mind of man and women. That if we can just know that God is here, then truly all is well. But we've been conditioned to not know that everywhere. And so our work in the spiritual truth is to deepen into that knowing that God is already here, God is already here, and God is already here. And the more that we can begin to practice and live from that truth, then we become freer. We begin to love more openly. We begin to forgive more easily. We have less fear about the world, greater peace and greater joy. That's the point. So if you're new to unity, this may sound like a radically new idea. I'm telling you, we didn't make it up. This is an ancient teaching. As a matter of fact, another thing Michael Beckwith coined was this phrase, the new thought, ancient wisdom. That our teaching is built upon the ancient truths known by many faiths and many traditions. I want to tell you today about a Christian mystic from the medieval era, from the 1300s. Her name was Julian of Norwich, English holy woman. She was not trained in any classical education. She was not an academic. All religious writing at the time was in Latin. She only wrote in Middle English. And we don't know too much about her other than she existed. There is enough proof that she existed. There's some other legal documents that prove that she was real. And she left behind some writings. And those writings are really amazing. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. Julian, we don't know if that was her real name. She was what's called an Anchorist of the Church of St. Julian. Anchorist or Anchorite. We don't have these anymore. But what these people would do, they were considered holy people, and they had to go through a whole series of tests to be approved as an Anchorist or an Anchorite. And they would build a little room on the side of the church, open a door. Hers was about 9 feet by 12 feet. They opened the door. She went in. They took the vow to be an Anchorist. They closed the door and sealed it shut. For the rest of her life, she spent in that room. There were 3 windows in that room. One room into the sanctuary where she could participate in the church services. That's where the priest would hear her confession. She would receive communion. There was another room where they took care of all the business of being human. I'm not going to say more about that. And then there was another window, and then there was one window to the outside world. And people came to Julian's window and asked her for advice. And she had deep spiritual wisdom. So she entered into that anchorage when she was still in her 30s. Something else happened to her, which I thought was really interesting. When she was a child, she prayed for God to give her a near-fatal disease so that she could become closer to God. I know, it was the Middle Ages. They had not yet invented self-help books at this point. I read that and was like, well, that's an interesting prayer. I will not be praying that anytime soon. But guess what? It happened. She had an almost fatal disease. She had grown up. We think she was a mom. We know that she was married, but her husband had died young, and she may have lost her children. It may have been in the Black Plague, because she was 6 years old when that first came to Norwich, and then there were several other major outbreaks of the plague. But we know that her mother survived, and her mother nursed her through her near-death experience. And in that experience, which she had prayed for, the second of her prayers was answered, because she had asked to have this experience so she could have a vision of Christ crucified. And Jesus appeared to her in a vision, what she called showings. She was given 16 showings and dispensations of divine wisdom. And she wrote them down. And then many years later, she wrote what's called the long text, where she explained what was truly meant in these showings that were given to her. She's not a saint in the Catholic Church. Probably because one of the visions that she got was there's no such thing as sin. Really? She said sin is just an absence of knowing of the presence of God. Who does that sound like, y'all? That sounds like unity. But that's really what sin is. It's just people that don't know. And she said, our humanity can be so easily forgiven when we truly know the presence of God. I want to read to you, too, what she said about mother. I thought this was really lovely. Oh, by the way, she also may not be a saint in the Catholic Church because she did ascribe to God feminine qualities and names. She was incredible. And this is the 1300s. Richard Rohr is a wonderful Franciscan priest, or Benedictine, and he did the foreword to this book that I'm reading about Julian. This is what he wrote. Well, this is the quote from Julian of Norwich. The beautiful word mother is so sweet and kind and in itself that it cannot be attributed to anyone but God. And Richard Rohr writes, in this citation from Julian, the showings, Julian offers us an amazing and foundational statement. She is not saying that the most beloved attributes of mother can be analogously be applied to God, although I'm sure she would agree that they could. She is saying much more, that the very word mother is so definitive and beautiful in most people's experiences, not everybody's, that it evokes at its best what we mean by God. That God is, in essence, the great mother. And she saw into this reality, or was shown this vision of God in her 30s. She says this in her writings. Well, the book that I'm reading and studying on this, it's by Mirabai Starr, who is a Jewish religious scholar from Taos, New Mexico. And she fell in love with the teachings of Julian and began to research and write this beautiful book about her. She says this, your God would never punish you for being a human being. I'm just going to let that sit there a second. Your God would never punish you for being a human being. You know, when I first got just a corner of this truth was when I began to really question my evangelical fundamentalist faith, because I had been taught that really 99.9% of all humanity were going to be in eternal punishment in hell forever. And I thought, that can't be right. Because humans are so fallible. We make so many mistakes. And if people don't say the right prayer or go to the right church, you mean God's going to send them into eternal punishment? That can't be right. And Julian saw to the truth of this. But she did say that this life itself is a penance. She said that sin doesn't truly exist as a thing of itself, but when we don't know that God is here, we do act in interesting ways. But she said that is our punishment. When we act as though we're not one with God, that is our punishment. Each trial, each loss is an opportunity for us to meet suffering and love and make it an offering, a prayer. She says, the minute you lift your pain like a candle, the darkness vanishes, and the mercy comes rushing in to heal you. This is again about mother. The beautiful word mother is so sweet and kind that itself cannot be attributed to anyone but God. Only he who is our true mother and source of all life may rightfully claim that name. Nature, love, wisdom, and knowledge are all attributes of the mother, which is God. And who else but a mother would pour herself out and break herself open for her children? Who but a mother would nurture life inside her own body and maintain a garden where we can take refuge and grow? What an amazing soul, Julian of Norwich, who saw into the reality of life and determined that it's good. She had a famous quote, you may have heard it. She said, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. She was teaching us that there is a promise built into the very fabric of reality by the great mother that no matter what happens, we are still held in the love of God. She had a vision. One of the showings was that the heart of the Christ opened, and inside the heart of the Christ was all of creation. And she said, as I peered deeper and deeper into the vision, there was no sin, only love. And this is the nature of reality. And until we get there in consciousness, until we have forgiven every wrong, and until we have healed all of our own wounds, until we get to that place, there is a promise that will carry us and lift us if we're willing to listen to Julian of Norwich. All shall be well. All shall be well. And all manner of things shall be well. That all is reconciled into the goodness of God. I hardly ever go back and see what I thought I was going to talk about when I say I'm going to talk about something. Because I write these talk titles and descriptions weeks earlier, but I did yesterday, and I want to share with you what I thought I was going to talk about today. And we'll see how we're doing. I think the talk title is Honoring Our Mother, Human and Divine. Some of us were blessed to be raised by loving, healthy moms. And some of us had a very different experience. For all of us, there comes a moment when we must reconcile the ideal of motherhood with the reality of our own childhood experiences, honoring the good that has come to us through our earthly mothers, forgiving that which might have caused us harm, all the while knowing that all is held in perfect wholeness in Mother, Father, God. I think that's what I talked about today. I stayed on topic. But the thing I would like to close with today is this idea that if we can hold that paradox. Remember last week I talked about that the ability to hold conflicting ideas in mind simultaneously is the hallmark of genius. Who are my geniuses? Let me see you out there. Okay, see? We're geniuses. We can hold the paradox. We can hold the paradox that we are perfect in spiritual reality and imperfect but honorable in our humanity, that we can even call our humanity holy. I've been kind of playing with this idea, is it that and because it's not we're half human and half divine, we're fully human, fully divine. And is it our human divinity or our divine humanity? I kind of like the second one, that what we're living here is holy. It's all an invitation to remember the deep truth of connection, protection, of fulfillment and freedom. And those who have been through the painful times of life and come on the other side and have seen that, oh yeah, all shall be well. We've learned that those things that stood in the way were actually the doorway to our greater freedom and wholeness. That's the promise here, that if we can stay in the paradox, and here's the other thing I have to tell you about paradoxes, they just never get comfortable. They don't resolve. That the paradox is the resolution. It's always going to be holding two contradictory truths. And so if you're not at genius level yet of Unity teachings, I encourage you to get on board with us. Come play with this idea that walking the edge. We talked last week about taking a step in the human. If we only do that, we go in circles. We take a step in the divine, but if we only stay in the divine truth, we go in circles. But to walk this path of evolution and becoming, we embrace both of these ideas. And when we do this for our beloved mothers, for all they gave and did not give, we are the ones who get the freedom of it. Do you get that? We are the ones who get the freedom, and our wholeness is revealed. So to our moms, thank you. It's the hardest job on earth. If you will follow the ancient commandment of honoring thy mother, you will be the one to receive the gift of freedom and fulfillment. And so for those who learned love and kindness from your mom, just give thanks. And if your mother is still here, like mine is, I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to tell her how much I appreciate her, how grateful I am for the gifts she gave me. And if your mother is not here, you can still tell her. You can still let her know how grateful you are for the gifts that you got. And for those that did not get those gifts from your mom, your invitation is to forgive. Your invitation is to forgive. I'm going to quote you Michael Graffio, if that's okay. Michael is the mom of my beautiful daughter, of my heart, Micah. We were talking about this last night, and Michael said this: sometimes we are called to a deeper level of forgiveness than the other person is capable of. That was really wise. Sometimes we are the ones called to a deeper level of forgiveness than the other person is capable. And if you're here at Unity, I know you're on a spiritual quest. I know you're committed to being a part of it. You're a spiritual growth. And forgiveness is a part of it for all of us. Once again, on forgiveness, I'm going to quote the amazing Edwene Gaines. There's a simple test to determine whether or not you have forgiveness work to do. Are you breathing? And if you're breathing, there is forgiveness work to do. One last thing I want to tell you about whatever did or didn't happen in your own childhood, or whatever you were not able to give to your children, but whether you thought that you could do nothing wrong in your mother's eyes, or you thought you could do nothing right in your mother's eyes, neither is true. You too are human. I hope today you will take the opportunity to find your own freedom in forgiveness. You'll take the opportunity to express the gratitude for the gifts that you got and gave as moms. We have a gift for you at the end of the service for all women, whether you are an actual mother or not. Actually, for anybody, we have plenty. We're going to have a flower out there. Our ushers and greeters will be giving those as you leave the sanctuary today. And just take it as a sign of promise. And remember Julian, that when she looked into the heart of God and saw creation, there was no sin there. There was only love waiting to be reconciled. Will you pray with me now? In this moment, I do remember the deepest truth of oneness, one power, one life, one source of all good, Mother, Father, God, that only knows itself, and creation is indeed an extension of, an expression of its own being. So when God sees reality, God only knows this love in form. And so we, as expressions of the divine, are invited into this consciousness of unity, that no matter what conditions may appear before us in our lives, there is a deeper truth that lies beneath, that all is well. And all shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. And so we place our trust and our faith in that promise. It may not feel well yet. It may not look well yet. It may not even be well in the level of conditions. But we know that beneath it, the wholeness of God is being revealed for us, to us, through us, and by us. And so we say yes to that love of the mother as it comes forward now. We are healed. We are restored. We rise up and reveal the truth of our own being. We let it be, and so it is. Amen. If no one has told you today that you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are worthy of love and connection, if no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.